Now, the former president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, and his wife, Cilia Flores, have been back in court in New York facing drug trafficking and weapons charges after US Special Forces captured him on the 3rd of January. Let me show you the live pictures from outside of the courthouse, because since Maduro's arrest, Venezuela's government has begun working with Washington, opening its oil and mining sectors to foreign investment and releasing some political prisoners. But today, he has been there in that courthouse in Manhattan. Let's go to our North America correspondent, Neda Tawfik, who's outside of the courthouse. We'll shortly talk to our South America correspondent, Ione Wells, who's in Sao Paulo. But Neda, to you first of all, just take me through what has been happening there at court.
Yeah, well, Matthew, you know, tensions are high outside of the courthouse, actually, where we saw a bit of a scuffle with punches thrown between two opposing group of protesters, Venezuelans here that are extremely happy and feel it is justice that Nicolás Maduro is inside having to answer to a U.S. court, and counter-protesters who are chanting "Free Maduro" and saying they are against U.S. imperialism, as they put it. But inside, actually, by contrast, the atmosphere inside that courtroom was quite calm. The Maduros didn't speak at all. They were listening through headphones to translation and allowing their lawyers to make arguments on their behalf. And during this 90-minute hearing, the main focus was really about this argument. The Maduros want the Venezuelan government to pay their legal fees, something the Venezuelan government says they are not opposed to. But the government is trying to block that, saying that sanctions that are currently in place make that impossible. And because of national security concerns, there shouldn't be any exceptions given. But what was interesting was that the judge really seemed to hint that he would rule on the side of the defense here, noting, Matthew, as you did there, that the U.S. government is now working with the Venezuelan government, that conditions have changed, and that the Maduros, given they are being held in federal detention, no longer pose an ongoing threat to national security. So the judge hinting that he saw instead the right to them having a defense, that constitutional right, as paramount and the bigger concern here. Other than that, there was really an interest for the judge to make sure that any evidence is not shared with defendants like Nicolás Maduro's son and the sitting Minister of the Interior and Justice, for example, who are still facing charges in this case, but that also didn't interfere with the chance of the Maduros to be able to question co-conspirators and defend themselves properly. So a highly technical legal hearing, Matthew, and what we heard the judge say time and time again is just how unique this case is. We can see this going on for potentially years as all of these legal issues are ironed out.
Neda, thank you. Let's go to our South America correspondent, Ione Wells. And Ione, how much has changed since January in Venezuela, and how much support or otherwise does Maduro still have?
Well, I think certainly in the capital, Caracas, there are notable changes that have taken place since his capture, since his former vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, has taken over as interim president. The most notable one being that hundreds of political prisoners have been released, although hundreds still remain behind bars. And the sense that I got there when I went recently was that people are feeling they can speak more freely, that they can speak their mind, criticise the government without such fear of repression that they had previously, just months ago. People were actively protesting, for example, again, something which they may have not felt able to do only months before. So in that sense, there are some tangible changes being felt by the people of Venezuela. Now, of course, on a political front, we are seeing this new relationship between the US and Venezuela, diplomatic ties being re-established, embassies reopening, and also all this promised new foreign investment with Venezuela changing its laws to allow more oil and mining investment from foreign companies. The US promising new investment from oil companies, from mining companies to pour money into Venezuela. On the ground, though, particularly when I went outside of Caracas to some of the poorest states in Venezuela, like Sucre, for example, on the east coast, it was very apparent that despite all this talk in the capital of new foreign investment, that feels miles and miles away from the reality of what many people in Venezuela are going through. They have suffered years and years and years of an economic crisis, a shortage of jobs, of decent employment opportunities, corruption, shortages that still are apparent today of fuel, of water in some cases as well. And I think all of these issues that feel so systemic to people certainly haven't changed since the 3rd of January. People are still questioning when exactly any of that change will be felt by ordinary people like them. Some, though, optimistic that Maduro being gone and his trial might mark the start of some of that change.
Ione, thank you, and thanks earlier to Neda Tawfik. We still don't actually have a trial date that has been set. It was thought it could have happened today. It didn't.